What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to give a video. I'm not going to make a presentation or anything. I'm going to be talking about alchemy, what it is, how you can practice it, and like what it actually means. This is more of just a general clearing up of nonsense than it is teaching specific techniques, because that's very deep and there's a lot of techniques. But I'm going to give you the general, right? What it means, what it is, how I know, and that's it. Okay, so if you have been interested in philosophy and you've been seeing it from a personal growth perspective, or not personal growth, but growth in knowledge, growth in understanding and wisdom, then you may have actually already arrived at the point of looking into alchemy and being like, what was going on here, right? This is crazy. This sounds crazy. We have this one sort of like line of like academic thinking, which like sort of cherry picks philosophers that prove a certain point. And then you have the sort of mysterious genius level people back in the day who were doing all this crazy stuff that has no real explanation, and it all seems very confusing. Now what I want to do is just bring this all together, tie it all together, so you can see that basically what alchemy, the word, represents is the like sort of primordial pursuit of the philosopher, right? They call it the philosopher's stone either, and I just put that together. But because if you look right through history, if you read Nietzsche, right, Genealogy of Morals, if you can see that, it's a great book. Or sorry, no, Beyond Good and Evil even. There's a section in there called We Scholars, but like he talks about it over and over and over again. Read that if you can get the book. Just go look to We Scholars, because what he's talking about here is so perfect. It's the introduction of the scientific method, and he's talking about the philosoph, like the death of, not the death of the philosopher, but how difficult it's become. And then he mentions people like Empedocles or like Aristotle and Plato. But what he's talking about really is the sort of mentality of the truth-seeking individual, where that leads you, and what sort of practices they end up inevitably adopting. Now, if you are that sort of person, then you've already been doing this yourself, and you'll see it all over the place. And it's not only philosophical people pursuing philosophy who do this, it's people who are pursuing excellence in any endeavor find themselves doing the same sort of things, right? And science now itself, when we're looking at biohacking as a line of science, is just basically confirming all the stuff that it by my research is best encapsulated and encoded for literally like 7,000 years in Taoist internal alchemy, right? So that's what it is. It's literally the practice that allows a person to just maintain themselves. It's not even to become anything exceptional. It's to maintain that. Well, it is. Yeah, there's aspects of it that allow you to do things that other people would find impossible, right? Or that by current understanding or Western understanding of the nature of what humans can do, it's impossible. But there's a million, not a million, there's about maybe 5 examples like who are in the public eye right now of people who can do things that are totally unexplainable. But it's explainable if you go and look at the practices that are practiced, and also understand the requirements in terms of, I call it ethics, but I'm not talking about morals like bad and good, right and wrong. I'm talking about the way that you go about life and what your intentions are, that allow you to improve beyond certain measures that are limited by like certain psychological frameworks. Okay, so let's just try and be more concrete here. What is it? Internal alchemy, Taoist internal alchemy. Like I said, this stuff is in. Go and look into Empedocles and how he lived his life, right? Look at Heraclitus. Look at Nietzsche, even as an example himself. What do they do, these people, right? The hermit, right? That's and the tarot decks. All this stuff, like the occult stuff that we have in the West, is based on the sort of certain, all the elements of what's required to become like, and the word interestingly is like pious. It's a pious person. So I just want to clear up at the beginning here, the idea that occult is evil is a mistake, 100%, and that comes from many reasons, right? I've talked a lot about like the authority structures that are placed on knowledge, and the way that causes, based on the survival instinct, the requirement to attack ideas that would remove certain people's authority, and that causes these sort of distorted thinking patterns, which is all feeds into the parts of what you need to do if you want to get beyond a normal person. But then also your goal can't be that, and the goal has to be to as efficiently as possible to serve the will of nature and life, the actual life, as with a capital L, the force of proliferation that we experience and live as a part of, right? So the practices, what are they? Taoist internal alchemy, just the most well retained set, and also, as far as I can see, the only directly student to teacher, student to teacher, student to teacher, growing the knowledge, growing the knowledge, growing the knowledge, remained like a steady line from God knows when. Like, the yogas talk about the rishis who brought this knowledge, and I don't want to get into all that because, again, it's unconfirmable and it leads to egotistical self-inflation that will ultimately derail you from growth, because personally you can't know if that's the case. You might sense something about it, but then assuming that, oh yeah, this came from these like divine beings who had all this information and I'm studying it, then I'm that, like that's the problem with all of this stuff. So and back to the occult is evil part, the fact is that these practices and the way that they're taught determines their effects. So if someone is not realizing the extent to which what they're doing is based on their own sense of internal desire to be impressive, or their desire to gain, to impress people and to be elevated in society, then when they use these practices, they will get that, and then they will pass that on. That's the energy they're passing on. So that they're interpretation and their literal actions are distorted by their desire to be effective affecting people. Therefore, what they're teaching becomes distorted, and they're not actually looking for the facts of the matter. They're looking for the things that continue to give them what they want, which is just like inflation of their self-importance. And then that's what they pass on and teach, and then things become very weird, and distorted and dark. But that's got nothing to do with the practices. Like, at the end of the day, and at the beginning of the book or at the beginning of the religion of Christianity, you had one man who was very much 100%, if you do your research, practicing these sorts of stuff. Like, that's the case. So it's not evil. It's the source of the religion. It's just the fact of how it's used. And ironically, the way that book, or the connection of Jesus to the book that we have as Christianity is used, is also evil in a way, in certain cases, because they're not focusing on the message of the man. They're focusing on the structure of the authority, and that's what causes distortion. And I'm not saying anyone's doing this on purpose. This is just literally this is part of understanding the algorithms of behavior and cause and effects that are all within this sort of teaching. Okay, it's the case. So it's not evil. It's not bad. Occultism isn't evil. It's not bad. It's how it's used. If someone is intending to impress or control other people, and they're trying to do things to make that happen, then their intent is evil. That's called evil, because what they're doing is they're literally trying to subjugate the individuals, every human being, every living being itself that is alive and acting through life, has it within it is life, and it therefore, based on all of its characteristics that allowed it to still be alive right now, it has a very clear picture of what it should be doing and how it can best, with the intent in mind of proliferating life in general, it will do its best. And that's the fundamental knowledge, and we all have to know that about ourselves, that we will do the best for what we can do in terms of to do what's best for the growth of life in general, by our own knowledge, without needing to be taught anything, without needing to take, this person said to do that, so I'll do this, and this person said that, and this, look what they did, so I'll do this, and then blah, blah, blah. That's not how it works. The way that it works is that we have an internal will, which is the life force itself. We need to stop impeding that by distorted mental frameworks, by distorted physical ailments, self-created physical ailments, by not understanding the cause and effect of our own being as a human being body, animal body, that has certain characteristics, and to treat the body in a way that allows us to do the best for the good, to treat our minds in the way that allows us to do the best for the good, to then act that out in the world, and then to therefore be a unit of increasing the flourishing of life in general. Okay, so that's what it's about. The practices, just briefly, what are the practices? Okay, there are many, but think about this. I'm going to use the biohacking stuff. Now, everyone's got a morning routine, right? A morning routine. What is it? What are the actual practices? A lot of them are a morning routine, but it's more than that. But again, they figured it out now recently, and they, again, everyone takes credit. Like, this is another thing, part of the modern mentality is we all take credit for stuff that's been done for thousands of years, right? And great, we can take credit for fucking rocket ships. That's cool. Well done. That is cool. But we can't take credit for stuff that, well, you can take credit for it, but that's just really betraying your ignorance about what human beings have been doing, and not being aware of your own influences in terms of seeing that yes, this is what, like, an old, go to the Himalayas and ask them what you should do every day, and they'll tell you a biohacking routine that works very well. And the funny thing is, it depends on your intention. If your intention is to be this sort of like ultra, yeah, boom, 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 like basically like, like jacked up, doing all this like really aggressive, then you're gonna like twist it slightly differently than if you're for your own self-interest. Then that's gonna be one way. If your goal is to be like peaceful and trying to do the best for other people and have as much energy as possible to affect the world in a good way, you might slightly tweak it a little bit. So anyway, what are the practices? We have things like hatha yoga, right? Which is not, that's Dao Yin. It's called Dao Yin. There's like stretching routines. There's the things like waking up very early in the morning, for example, and doing the exercise before sunrise or just around the sunrise time, right? You have this thing that you see from science where they talk about the effect of being out and exercising at sunrise, early morning sunshine, on your hormonal system that makes you like way happier and way more like productive and energetic. That's been known by observation for thousands of years. And then there's also the other aspect of when the sun is rising. There's just before the sunrise, there's this electromagnetic pulse that comes out of the ground. As I don't know exactly why, but it is the case. Look into it. And when it comes to other parts of the practices, not just the stretching for your physical body, but for the other parts, like increasing your literal energetic frequency, I guess is the, and I don't want to use these words that will like trigger skepticism or like cynicism, because people have so overused them, because they say a little bit of truth is a very dangerous thing, because people like learn one little thing and then like go crazy, like, oh, and then think they know everything because they know so little that they don't realize how little they know. But the word frequency or electromagnetic energy is massively amplified for like 10-15 minutes as the sun hits a certain point in relation, as it's about to hit the earth. There's a huge electromagnetic uprising that also is gathered. That's part of it. So okay, we have dietary things about timing of eating, that it's all incredibly well timed with our circadian rhythms, right? Like when you eat during the day, what you should eat during the day, which isn't like, none of this stuff is like it's a prescription, like it's not like a moral code, because we all have this idea like, whoa, because of the society that we live in, right? These are observations that if you do these things, other things will happen. So if you want certain other things to happen, then here's how you do it. Here's the route. That's what it is. It's not like you have to do this, and if you don't do it, you're bad. It's like, here's what causes this to happen. So if we're talking about like becoming like hyper emotional, really good levels of emotional control, extreme levels of compassion, like very highly charged and ability and energy and extreme concentration, very high levels of discipline, precision in action and physical, in precision in thinking, clarity of thinking, large scale understanding of the patterns of life and the world and nature, many other things, then that is what this is all designed for. This is like, it's designed to like take normal human animal to proper human being, right? Like that's what it is. And it's stuff that seems boring, which is why it's funny, because it's like irony. Like, the nature of life is of I guess the Tao, and I never really use that word, but the nature of the life and truth is irony, and it's ironic that the path to becoming the most like extraordinary person just looks really boring, and it looks really uninteresting, and the result is that you get this absolutely magnificent level of functionality that is only really recognized after the fact, right? like it's pretty much been like, well, yeah, stupid, and then you realize what it actually is. Like the guy, he's he's in Indonesia, and he's got like proper crazy powers for healing, right? Like he can do the energy transmission and make people go shocking like that. And he he did a thing where they were making a documentary about him, and he started sharing his things, and he did a thing where he stuck a he stuck a chopstick through a table, and it should be impossible, but he did it with his powers, and a little splinter flicked off and hit somebody, and it drew blood into some girl, and he got so he was so like upset because you're not supposed to use this stuff like to develop this stuff like I'm gonna go on a side point after this, but to develop this stuff you need to like it you can't use it for like I forgot this is a great word, pageantry, like making a show out of it. And he did, and he hurt somebody, and he was so distraught about it that he had to go into the jungle in Indonesia for like 3 weeks to like connect to with his ancestors, and then he disappeared. No one ever saw him. Like he would never be filmed again. He never be recorded again because of that transgression of the principles, right? Um, and also a side point, all this stuff about evil wizards and people like doing all evil stuff like evil occultism, my point, I argue from extraordinary amount of research and actually practicing certain things, and I'm not saying anything about my practices, is that it's impossible. Like the fact is that in order to gain the literal requirements for the physiological things that you need to do and the psychological and the combination of psychological physiological practices requires that you can't be egotistical. You like, just as an example, one of the greatest ways, like you can spend months and months gathering this type of energy, and then you go in a like a in a revenge based rage, and it'll be gone. The negative intentions just drain this energy, like, which is why, like, people, like, again, there are people doing like stuff that's very 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 questionable, but I think mostly it's psychological manipulation, and then using cruelty as a source of energy, which again, like, this is the thing, if you want to internally gather the energy, then it's impossible to be evil, right? It's a good thing, and it has all the highest levels of what you like, actual like success, or the real positive stuff you get out of it is requires all the ethical stuff. You could call it ethicals, but again, I don't want to put it into these categories of we understand morals and ethics. It's like literally the effects of doing good things, right? But the effects of doing these practices and doing good things is like experiences that are like the real juice of it, that are impossible to achieve if you're being selfish, evil, egotistical, and stuff like that, because you need to have a certain frame of mind. You can't enter into these realms of thinking without letting go of those sorts of desires. So anyway, uh, yeah, so the practice is physical training, how you eat and stuff like that, and then there's energy gathering itself, right? Like gathering vital energy, and then it's okay. So think about the placebo effect. What happens, right? Like the thought that something's a medicine works better than most medicines, and in fact they have to test against it. And a lot of the time, if something works 50% better than a placebo, then they think it's a good medicine, right? So basically, the internal healing factor based on mental ability is better than 50%, probably 70 to 80% of medicines, right? Um, so that's something important, like to recognize as a fact of life that the mind has the ability to change the body in terms of its physical health, right? So if you then imagine that we are electromagnetic beings, a lot of our life force is probably related to electromagnetism. And when they say to go out and gather energy in the mornings, and then it's confirmed by science that there is an electromagnetic effect that happens every morning just before the sun rises, as it's like the sun, the energy, I don't know what it is because I'm not a scientist, but it is a thing. Then you have to imagine that maybe there's something to what they're talking about. So what do you do when you're talking about energy gathering, right? Because this is a part of it. Internal alchemy process is the process of the internal transformation of the physical energy into spiritual energy, into other levels of energy, and then connection to what they call the Tao, which is just the greater life force, right? And then to be a vessel acting for the greater life force, which gives you an extreme like propulsion, like rocket ship, like like Sadhguru, right? Like sleeps 2 hours a night, travels all around the world, and he's always perky. He's very um, personable, and he doesn't get phased, all this stuff, and he's doing an extraordinary amount, but mostly for things that are charitable, right? Like you don't hear about sex scandals with Sadhguru, do you? Like, I mean, maybe he has them, but like you hear about that with Rajneesh, right? Like, but that's a different story. He potentially was he leveled out. He reached a level and then leveled out because of his desires, right? Like he got a bunch of Rolls Royces, but he didn't build the Adiyogi statue, did he? And he didn't like and have a million. Well, maybe no. I'm not going to talk down on the guy, but I'm just saying that each person who pursues this path and gets beyond certain points will reach limits of their own mental spaces in terms of how much they can possibly do for the evolution of life towards the proliferation of life rather than like the evolution of life that requires like complete destruction of life, right? These are the two opposites, right? Is it leading to more harmony, unity, and growth, like proliferation of all beings, or is it like some at the expense of others? Is it like my enjoyment at your suffering and then manipulation to make you feel better about it, or to make you feel like it's your fault, or you're not good enough? That's why this happened to you, right? Like you need to be aware that there are many layers to this stuff, and everything that's done, you will see any successful person is taking on many layers of this stuff. That's why they become interested in philosophy and in stoicism, right? Like this, I said his name earlier, Empedocles, right? I think they classified him as a stoicist, but like he's not. We use this stuff for what we use it based on our desires. But if your desire is to become the immortal, right, which is the internal alchemy path, then it leads you to a different route, right? Like you can look at stories, like read the story of Lao Tzu, read the stories of these are people are there as examples of what it is, and their life choices are the example of the requirements to get to the higher levels. Okay. But fundamentally, what it is: master your body, master your mind, become use that combination to further the pursuit of life in terms of the growth and proliferation of life in all of its forms, and the harmony of life and the mutual coexistence of life. The what's that word? I've lost it. Where animals work together and they symbiosis, the symbiotic growth of life, right? Like ethics, I'm talking about are like the symbiotic impulse, right? Like to where one thing grows, the other thing grows. Like the zero sum game is like the predator prey model, and then there's the symbiotic model, which is like 90% of the rest of nature, which is like I win, you win, we all win, and we create a whole world ecosystem that makes other things grow. Like if you look at the relationship between plants and animals and stuff like that, symbiosis, right? That's what I'm talking about. And then as you improve your physical strength and you improve your energy, oh yeah, let's go back to the energy improvement. So I tangent. Then this is part of it. It's like you need to talk about everything that's there, all the different factors. So yes, it does involve practices that do increase the electrical charge of your body. I would imagine, right? Like and transform your mental functioning, right? Like if you look, they did some brain scans of guys who lived in Tibet. Monks, I think he was a Western guy, but he went and lived in monasteries in Tibet. And Tibetan Buddhism is the same practices. All of the religions are based on this thing because it's a true thing. What they call, and I don't want to use all these words that have been literally just like taken by someone who gets on a high from talking about it and likes the way that people respond to them when they talk about it, and then uses that to get more energy, to get more people to listen, and then what they're teaching them has that intent behind it. So it's just the proliferation of egotism rather than the improvement of society, right? Like that's the problem, and it's not a problem, it's just the nature, and we all need to be able to see that if we want to like navigate the gambit of like knowledge, because it's there are many eddies and whirlpools you can get caught in, and always an internal driver for that. So yes, You have physical practices you need to strengthen your body. So they have a lot, like they have the, like, think about it, martial artists, like how many people are there right now in the public eye who are self-made, very successful, who practice martial arts? Guess what is martial arts? It's a Taoist. That's one of the physical paths of Taoism, is martial arts, right? And within that, within the way that they teach you to practice martial arts, are all the principles that you need to live the Tao. Okay, that's what it is. You can do it through any form. It's how you it's the way that your mind approaches life, and your pursuit of life, and your pursuit of excellence, that allows you to become the person that does the change, and does it from the sense of the good, because you are operating from that on a day-to-day basis. You're disciplining yourself to do that, so you can. Internal alchemy is like a martial art, but it's the internal energy martial art. This is something that only the woo-woos have really picked up on. And the woo-woos are just using it for self-aggrandizement, so they fucking belittle and make it stupid. And I'm not saying that. Like, the people have good intentions, and I don't want to, but imprecision in language puts off people who are intelligent, and then and then all the sort of the way that we go about structuring and authoritizing information causes this sort of cynicism that allows people to punish and put off people for being imprecise with their words. So when people talk about energy cultivation and like Reiki, if you look into the literal all of the woo woo stuff, because, as I'm saying, we have one body, there's one universe, and we're all have the same relationship to that universe. All these practices are the same. It's the best retained in Taoism. If you want to understand about like energy stuff, like go and look at John Chang. That's the guy. That's the guy from look into John Chang, uh, and just watch this documentary and be open-minded to the fact that this is possible. Go and look up GM Wolf. He's an Australian guy who went and started practicing as a monk in Tibet at like 7 to 8 years old. Go and look at the stuff he can do, and then there's a million people trying to say it's debunking, but just look at it, okay? Energy, electromagnetism, like all you're watching me right now because of the understanding of electromagnetism. Our bodies, our minds move our bodies by controlling electromagnetism. So if there are ways to extend that are retained, that's what this is, okay? And I'm not saying anything else, but the fundamental thing you need to understand is that there's physical practices, the stuff that you eat, there's the strengthening your body. Your body has to be strong enough to hold energy, to have energy, to be vital, to be exuding energy, we are trying to increase the life force within us, the thing that's the burning that's there. And then also the pursuit of wisdom, right? Wisdom is the understanding, the knowledge of cause and effect, right? There's knowledge, which are just words that are in your head and a bunch of things, and this and that, no, just words that you're putting together in this big framework. Wisdom is the understanding of the cause and effect of phenomena and its meaning and the future implications of that. Only comes through experience. So I would argue that with most religions that we have now, we are dealing with knowledge and not wisdom. Wisdom being the understanding of what all of this stuff is about, how to become a godly person. And we get that through the teachings of the man, right? But not through the practice. Although, no. And I'm not belittling it. I think Christianity is great. I have no problem with that. I just see that there's a thing that people are misunderstanding about the nature and relationship between these sorts of practices that have come pre all religions that we have, and what they mean, because they are a force for good if they're used, and as is Christianity, as is the church, as is the stature of the pastor, like, can be used for good or evil, same thing. And the root of arguably all religions comes from that, because it precedes it. Like, even Judaism is preceded by this practices that we're talking about in Taoist internal alchemy that have been retained from that time, from student to teacher, and accumulated. Go way past any religion that's still alive today, okay? And they will allow you to change your life and become a force for good in this planet, and a central authority in your own life, and a sovereign individual who is the source of their own information by testing against reality, who becomes a person who brings new information into being that then graces us all, Why I mentioned Empedocles, Nietzsche, all these people, because they practice the same archetype. What is that? Hermitage. Why is that? Because it's to avoid the human natural impulses of animals, right? Like you see the stuff that Jordan Peterson talks about with the lobsters and the serotonin and the human the pecking order and serotonin, and it makes them basically become dicks. And self-absorbed, right? Like that's an animal instinct. It's not special. We're not. When you do something and everyone kisses your ass, it doesn't make you special. It makes you an animal. And no, it maybe you did something good, and that's cool. If it is going to increase the future of growth for all living beings, then good job. But the feeling of greatness that comes from it is literally a chemical spraying in your brain, and our becoming addicted to that is just being an animal. Right? It's the same as being addicted to any drug, and this is the pitfall: is the attachment to animality rather than the pursuit of the um, of being life. Like to the growth of life itself. So, as I said, it's going to be pretty basic, but there are physical practices that allow you to increase your energy. The way it works is very much like the placebo effect, in that you have to sit and practice and build this internal structure. There is an extraordinary understanding of the way the sort of electromagnetic stuff moves throughout the body, and then there's a physical process which requires extreme concentration and determination to build and form the structures that allow you to retain this stuff. Because, like, right, okay, so the biohacking thing is we go out in the morning, and if you go out before sunrise, and then you go and run around and get some exercise and stuff, and you feel all good, yeah, I'm pumped up all day, or until about midday, and then you crash and you're tired again still, right? But the fact is, the point of the energy cultivation is that you go and you do that, and you don't get tired again. You gather the energy, and you increase the energy, and increase the energy, and increase the energy, and then you do processes. Like you transform it, you concentrate, purify, concentrate, transform. There's many stages of the transformation, from the physical energy to vital energy to spiritual energy to literal spirit, and then the spirit, you then use that spirit to go and do other stuff, and to all towards the goal of connecting to the energy of life itself, and then to be a vehicle for that in the world, to be a godly person, right? To connect with the Holy Spirit. It's the same thing. So yes, alchemy is that. That's what it is. And the guys, when it comes to the stuff you read about with the Negredo and all this like stuff from medieval Europe, they were doing a similar thing. They were using that to grow in understanding of chemistry, right? They were doing chemistry. They were performing transformations in chemistry, but they were using the mental practice in order to be able to make these breakthroughs and understandings, to make the discoveries, to have the insight and the intuition to put different things together, and then to create stuff with them. It's the foundation of this is the mental practice, and people will get there on their own. This is the thing, and that's what I'm trying to point out. But you see people who are exceptional in any place, and we see that there are certain similarities in the things that they do. If that is your desire, you can get there on your own. These practices aren't going to teach. They're not going to magically make you that. This is like an extremely large repository of information towards things you can do if you want to improve that. And basically everything that's known about human growth and personal transformation is already in there. Okay, it's there, and it's all very simple. But the fact is that if you're looking at it from I'm going to read the stuff and then just do it ritualistically, then you're not going to get it's about the personal transformation that the individual goes through based on their own very complex and impossible to comprehend combination of influences, capacities, incapacities, difficulties, damage, all these different things. There are so many layers of unique qualities, situations, and advantages and disadvantages that everyone has, that it's impossible that any practices could themselves lead you to be what you know you're capable of becoming. But the fact is that there is a huge repository of information about how to do that. And when it comes to the energetic stuff, like the sort of stuff that you hear about, or go and look at John Chang and stuff like that. That's all in there. Okay, that's part of it, and that is that requires at least a certain amount of time of focusing purely on that. So, but you can get very far in your energy cultivation while living a normal life. And fundamentally, Taoism, that's what they suggest, is that the Taoist is not the monk in the living in a monastery, right? The Taoist is the one who takes the practices and uses them to change the world for the better of all life, right? Not just humans, not just the whole thing. It's more than just Earth. You know what I mean? The literal the processes of time growing towards ever increasing harmony and proliferation, right? So that's it. Um, this has been pretty long now. So what you should take away from this is, yes, the practices exist. It's physical training. It's energetic training. It's about your intent. Like if you see something that you're interested in, you need to figure out what that is about this stuff, and then understand that it's there. Um, and if you're watching, let me know anything else you want to. If you want more information about specific things, ask me and I'll say it. Okay, cool.